Hey everyone, welcome to Crime Weekly News. I'm Derek Levasseur.
And I'm Stephanie Harlow.
We're going to dive right into this week's episode. We don't really have anything unless, Stephanie, do you have anything that you want to catch up on? Can't really think. We plug coffee. We do all that. What else we got? Anything?
No, I think they'll just be happy if we just jump in.
We just jump right into it. Okay, so
Video
here we are.
Starts at 000.
Truly, pretty much close to it. Okay, so here's what we have this week. 35-year-old Eastwood Mohammed Mannan and 27-year-old Cassie Jo Guidino are facing 2 counts of first-degree kidnapping and 2 counts of first-degree subjecting another person to involuntary servitude after allegedly luring Mannan's 2 cousins from New York to Oregon with the promise of work and freedom. Pretty crazy case. I don't know the details, but Stephanie's going to fill you in right now.
I like that it says the promise of work and freedom, as if those two things are just not completely contradictory to each other.
Work and freedom. Yeah, that's
work
true, right?
And freedom. Like I get it in this context, right? It's like, oh, if you work and then you get money and then that gives you freedom. But that is not what happened for these 2 individuals. So allegedly, reportedly, these 2 people who were cousins of Eastwood Mohammed Mannan, they were lured to Grants Pass, Oregon in 2022. The female 19-year-old cousin was the first to arrive in June of 2022, and then her older brother, who was 22, was brought there in October of 2022. And according to a police press release, quote, over several months, the suspects allegedly forced the victims to work through the use of torture and fear of serious physical injury. The victims were required to give all money earned from online employment to the suspects. End quote. For the female, the 19-year-old who was the first to arrive, she was forced to do housekeeping at the house and then do online work and give Guidino and Mannan her money that she earned from that work. And the couple allegedly forced her to take cold showers, and they would burn her with a torch if she resisted. And then once a month, they would contact her family back in New York asking that they send money for her dorm, which I assume to be like a room and board type of situation, but they called it a dorm. And then, like I said, her 22-year-old brother followed in October of 2022. And apparently when he got there, he was also doing online work to make money that they would then take. But they put these parental locks on his phone and his computer so that he had limited access to the internet and so that he could not contact his friends and family at all. This individual is actually the one who ended up escaping this past Sunday, and he called 911, but he told the police he had wanted to escape the previous February, but he feared the repercussions if he was not able to do so or if he got caught, and those repercussions included being beaten and starved. So when he escaped, he called 911. He reportedly had broken ribs, and the police noted he had a burn on his right forearm as well as a bruise on his mouth, which he said was from being hit in the face. So the police went to the house. They executed a search warrant, and there they found the 19-year-old female. She was underweight, malnourished, and visibly injured. And initially, I guess, she told the police that her brother had injured her in what they said sounded like a coached statement, according to court records. And obviously, Mannan and Guidino were arrested at that time, and Mannan has also been charged with 2 counts of second-degree assault on top of the kidnapping and the forced servitude charges that you had mentioned earlier. So, yeah, this is crazy, especially considering this is like your family, his family. Like, that's his cousins. And that's very strange why he would do that to them. I don't know anything about these people, but I can only imagine, probably he's not a good person.
It's probably a safe assumption. I'm going to be interested to hear more about this case as it develops, as more comes out, because it almost looks like we have a situation here where maybe the sister was being used as a recruiter, specifically for her brother in this case. Because you ask yourself, if she was going through these things, why would she tell her brother to come? And I'm assuming she was coerced and manipulated to do that, and probably fed a script, kind of like the script she gave police when they showed up. But it's really sad when you think about it from that perspective, because more than likely she was trained or threatened to do it this way to get her brother over here, knowing that she was kind of setting him up for a trap, that she knew what he was getting himself into once he came. So that's sad to think about. But when reading this script and hearing about it, it reminds me of a case that I worked in Central Falls where I don't know if it's been on camera or off camera, because you and I have so many conversations about my, when I was a cop, and I forget what we've said on a recording and what we've just said personally, but there was a time when I was working undercover in the beginning, when I wasn't doing like the hardcore like narcotic stuff, where one of the first things that I did was go into a massage parlor that was in our city, and it was for sex trafficking. They were bringing in women from outside the country, and they were holding them against their will and having them do these things at this massage parlor, again, against their will. So they sent me in there a few times to try and case the joint, see if I could see anything that would suggest these women were there and they didn't want to be, or if they were performing any type of activity that they shouldn't be. You guys can do the math on that.
Right.
And so they had sent me in there a few times to do that. And there was clearly certain things that I would see or hear coming, from the basement where the women would go after they were done with the customers. It didn't seem like anybody was leaving that building either at the end of business. So to fast forward a little bit, we conducted an investigation over a couple months, sent multiple undercovers in there, and eventually we got a search warrant based on observations. And we did learn that there were multiple women being held against their will in the basement. Most of them were brought from overseas. And as we started to get them away from the people that were holding them there, first they had the story of, we want to be here, this is what we want to do. And as we separated them and they realized that they were safe and that they weren't going to be deported, they started to open up to us and let us know that some of them had been there for almost a year, where they were just brought over with the promise of, again, kind of a similar thing where they were going to be free, but not only were they going to be free, but they were going to have a job waiting for them. So
working for money,
right?
That they would get to keep.
That they could earn a living, so they're not coming over here without any type of something set up for them to actually survive on. And so they were brought here under that promise. And then once they got here, a similar situation happens where it's like, okay, thank you for the money. This is your cut. And this is our cut. And it just turns out that their cut was like 5% of what they should have been getting. And, oh, by the way, for security reasons or whatever, you're going to have to stay here. And if anyone ever questioned it, that person was beaten or assaulted or sexually assaulted so that nobody else would dare ask to leave or suggest that they should be able to leave. So really sad situation. I think at the time, there was probably like 6 or 7 women that were there. Some of them would be there for a little bit and then get moved to different locations because this was like a bigger thing than just this one spot. But in a way, this kind of reminds me of that case. And unfortunately, this type of scenario is happening a lot more than people probably realize. This is happening throughout the country. You have so many people.
All the time. Yeah.
All the time, depending on keep your politics out of it for a second. But if people are getting into this country, a lot of them are coming here to work and to have a better life than what they had from where they were. And when they get here, they're coming here thinking that opportunity is going to present itself. So they're desperate. Someone just word of mouth saying, yeah, I can give you that. They're willing to roll the dice and take the chance. And the people that are doing it know that these individuals are desperate and that they can take advantage of them. So it's not always as extreme as this or as extreme as the scenario that I just kind of gave you. Sometimes it's just in construction or whatever other types of work, labor-intensive jobs that you can think of where there are people taking advantage of these individuals and using them because they know they can. And it's unfortunate.
I mean, I always say that this kind of human trafficking, like when you say human trafficking, this is exactly what we're talking about, right? And as you know, it is incredibly common, and there's so many warning signs to look out for. And we can do a video about that. Like if you want a video specifically on how to watch out for the warning signs of someone who may be being trafficked, we can do that because there's a lot of things to discuss. But it's not like what you see in the movies, right? You see, like, for instance, Taken, right? You see this girl being taken and then she's brought to like some Eastern European country and stuck in a brothel there. And like, yes, obviously that happens. But what's far more common is that people bring other people into the country to work for them, to basically use them as slave labor. And then they don't know anybody. They sometimes don't know the language. They don't have their own money, and so they are very dependent on their captors in a way. In this situation, they were already here in the country. They were in New York. I'm not sure what the situation is with that, but I can only imagine there were some barriers that these two siblings faced that are similar maybe to being new to the country. Maybe they were new to the country. We don't really know, but I can look at this because you said, would the sister have been the one to recruit the brother? It's possible because if you think about it, she was there in June. The brother didn't come over till October. that's an entire summer. And, you know, basically an entire summer that she's being tortured, brainwashed.
Yeah, especially it looks like she was being assaulted. If those second-degree assault charges for Mannan are, I'm assuming she's the victim in those charges.
I would say so. And I mean, like I had earlier said, they would burn her with a torch. So there is a degree of, you know, physical and psychological abuse happening here that would make her feel as if she didn't have any other choice. And she was with them for long enough before her brother came over where she could have been thoroughly broken in that time. I don't know the specifics, obviously. I'm sure that will come out. But yeah, like Derek said, this is happening quite often. And it's just, you never really know. You don't know you don't know that it's happening. You could live next door. I'm sure these people, this was what happening for a whole year, basically. And I'm sure these people had like neighbors who had no idea that it was happening in that house. They didn't even know. Maybe these two people, the brother and sister, weren't even allowed to leave the house. I'm going to go ahead and say they probably weren't allowed to even see the light of day and step outside that house for fear that what would end up happening this past Sunday with the 22-year-old brother getting help, for fear that would happen. So this is horrible. And to know that it happened at the hands of your own family, like I guess you expect strangers to try and take advantage of you like this, but your cousin that you clearly trusted enough to come and live with him in the first place, it's very upsetting.
It is. And it's definitely something that you will see. You see it in the realm of pedophilia as well, where you'll have these pedophiles, if they're able to groom a young girl, they'll have her out there soliciting pictures and videos from other young girls because it's easier to obtain those videos and photos from a young girl who looks like you, who you feel you can trust. And they'll use that girl to groom these other girls to be more comfortable and send stuff and maybe potentially meet up at some point where they'll say, hey, I'm going to be at this park. Why don't you come meet me there? Don't tell your parents. They wouldn't be okay with this, but it's just going to be me. Look, I'm innocent. So this could be a situation where you have a young female who over the time has been assaulted, tortured, whatever the case may be, and is possibly doing this against her will, but also possibly doing it because it's all she knows at this point. And that's what she feels is acceptable. And so it could be one of the two things. And either way, it's not good. And I think as a community, as a society, it is tough to notice. I'm not going to sit here and say like it's going to be completely obvious because, as you said, in many instances, the offenders are not allowing these victims to be out in public because of maybe the way they might look, what they might say to someone in passing. And in this world where a lot of us are, seeing these things and calling police when we do, it could be just the condition of their skin. Like if they're at a shopping mall or something and they got bruises or lacerations or burns on their arms, someone may look at it just by the way they make eye contact and say something's not right about that and grab a license plate, which then police would go do a check the well-being on, and all of a sudden the case is being solved because of that. So the offenders usually like to control the situation, not only their victims, but also the environment they're in. And if those individuals, those victims do not have contact with the outside world, it's that much more difficult to get a message out to someone who can help them, which is why a case like this where you have the 22-year-old who was able to fortunately escape and get the help he needed. But that's not always the case. So yeah, everyone has to be vigilant. What do you think would have happened?
Like, how long do you think these people could think they could get away with this? Like,
I mean,
what is the long-term plan here? I don't understand. To be like, there has to be some like grander thing happening here, because two people don't just say, let's enslave another two people and just see how long we can get away with this for. Like, and how profitable and lucrative can that really be? Like, that's my question.
Well, you have situations where I always go back to this case and I don't remember it, but it's the one where we have the meme or the gif where the guy's like the funny character who observes something at a house and goes up to it, and there was ended up being like 3 or 4 women who were in there for multiple years. Do you remember this? Is it like Maryland or something like that? But he was the one that was on, like, they did an interview with him, and it's hilarious the way he's like talking. I thought he said something about McDonald's or some stuff like that. But anyways, I'm getting off the path here. What some people will do in these rings is usually, like I said, it's this like this group of organizations. It's not just one person doing it.
Right.
So,
that's what I'm saying. It feels like it's got to be On
it's
some
a bigger
grander
thing.
scale. Yeah.
Grander
I agree.
scale. So you have these smaller, different satellite groups that are all connected, whether it's through the internet or phone, however they're doing it. But what happens is they'll have these victims in a certain location for an extended period of time. But when things start to get comfortable or they feel like the victims themselves could be getting restless and may try to do something, they will move them to a new location. They will kind of rotate them because at that point, now you're resetting it, where now this victim who may have developed a pattern, understands how maybe they could escape or get in communication with someone, gets moved to a whole new location with new people, and now they have to start over as far as game planning as to how they get out of this. And so it keeps them on their toes and it keeps them unfamiliar with the situations they're in, which makes them less likely to try to escape. And I think that's a lot of what happened. It's what we found with the investigation we did just in that time. There were women being moved from that location that we were in to a different location.
Yep.
And the only time you wouldn't see the girls that I was seeing in there pretty consistently.
I think you told me about this. You had to go in like undercover, didn't you?
Yeah, I went in undercover, and there's a little bit of a funny story behind it, but it was one of those massage parlors where, you could pay for more. And
oh yeah, we got one of those around where I live now, and it's just so weird to know that everybody knows about it, and it's just like operating, and it's so awkward.
Awkward. Speaking of awkward, and this is a story I think I told you where they sent me in there and I had a code word before I had to get naked to get in the shower, because you would always get in the shower first.
Well, that's good. At least I'm glad that.
But I was wearing a recording device, and so
maybe that's why they want you to get in the shower first.
Probably, but they gave me a code word, a specific code word, and when they got when we agreed on something, in a sexual act for money, I could say the word and they would come in and get me or whatever, and I said the word and they didn't come. They just let me roast in there, and I had to weasel my way out of it to the point where I just walked out because I was like, you guys. But they did that to mess with me, basically, because I was the rookie and they got a good kick out of it. So shout out to them for that one. But yeah, that is something that happens a lot. I don't see a lot of operations happening now because people are cracking down on it. It's a little bit harder to.
So like, is it legal now though? Like
no, it's definitely. Well, I guess in certain states, I guess it could be legal, but.
So this massage parlor that's just like offering happy endings, like right around the corner from me, all like obvious.
That is illegal.
That's illegal, right?
That is illegal.
But like everybody knows about it and they all talk about it like it's nothing. Even though I'm like totally like, I think it's kind of gross to think about like.
Yeah.
You could get something, man. Like now I'm so glad I'm not out in like the dating pool, because now every time I would date a guy, I'd be like, did you go to that massage parlor? And do I have to worry that like you got something from it?
And I mean, I guess this is a different conversation that we've kind of gone on here, but I think there are people on both sides of the aisle where some people are like, hey, listen, if these people want to do this, if there's an exchange of money for this, they should be allowed to do with their bodies what they want. Police should be focused on more important things. And then the argument on the other side is what we're talking about tonight, right? Like, okay, there is a world where these women are doing it voluntarily because they want to, but there's also in this realm of these types of criminal offenses, in many instances, the women are not doing it because they want to. They're doing it because they have no other choice.
And like, how do you even know the difference at this point?
You don't, which is why we have to shut these things down and get to the bottom of it, because in this world of these massage parlors, you have a lot of sex trafficking, and that's why we're cognizant of it, and that's why we try to. It's not just as you said, it's not just the guy going in there to get a happy ending and everyone's on board with it. In many instances, there's more going on.
Do you think he wears a condom when he's getting the happy ending? Like, how is this working?
You're focused on the wrong stuff.
Because I'm worried about like things
STDs
getting spread
and stuff.
around.
I get it.
Yeah, of course.
I get it.
Like,
I think that's
freaking course.
I mean, this is like
because no one's talking. Everybody's talking that it exists, but no man's gonna be like on a first date and be like, "Oh yeah, yesterday I went to the massage parlor where you get the happy ending." No, you're not gonna know until it's too late.
I mean, this is off the rails again.
Super comfortable for me.
I think my understanding of a happy ending, you should be safe in that sense.
Was Bill Clinton? No,
that wasn't a happy ending. Well, I mean, it could have been happy.
It was because she had something on the blue dress. So it was. Don't you remember the blue dress? Which lets me know there was no condom on Big Willie.
What are we doing here?
I'm just saying, man, like, come on.
There's different forms of happy endings is what I'm getting at. Some are more safe than others as far as what you're concerned about.
I see what you
follow what I'm saying here? massage
where there's
parlor.
no like exchange of fluids.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay, you with me?
Yeah.
Okay, we got that out of the way.
What's the point in doing that, though? You could just do that to yourself as a man.
My
like,
God.
am I right? That seems like kind of pointless. I'm just saying, like,
I tried,
I don't know
guys.
what it's like to be a man.
I tried.
I don't know what it's like to be a man. So, like, but can't you just do that to yourself? Wouldn't you want the other things that you couldn't do to yourself?
I'm pleading
you're
the fifth
paying
on
for
everything
it.
else from here. This does not
Why
end
can't
well
you
for
just
Derek.
tell me what, as a man, like, tell me?
This does not end well for me at all. Not getting me,
like,
Harlow.
Can you tell me when we're not recording?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
All
Okay.
right, that's fine.
Back to the sex workers and obviously these other women who are being held against their will and
Wow.
being forced to perform
You're
sexual.
trying to shame me for my ADHD brain wandering?
No, you're just like, so how is the happy ending? Like, what if it's like you're doing a lot of research here? But
I mean, I thought a happy ending was one thing, and you're telling me that it could be
I guess
multiple
it's
things.
subjective.
I
If you want to go the safer route, there's other options. So, how do we wrap up this episode?
We're just gonna tell them to follow us on social media.
All right. First off, we are very glad to hear that these two got out of the situation. There are times where, when they're no longer cooperating, they'll kill these individuals. So that the fact that we had a more positive outcome than that situation, not saying it's good, that's good. We got these two off the street, so they can't do it to anybody else. So it'll be interesting.
Now, but I mean, knowing like the Oregon, they're in Oregon, all right? These people are going to be back out there probably by tonight.
I hope you're wrong. And we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it. There's really not much else. Again, conductor tonight, trying to keep this train on the rails.
How's that going for you?
It's hard.
I get sillier as the night goes on.
You really do. Okay, so we're going to wrap this up.
Yeah, tell them where to follow us.
You can follow us on Instagram or Twitter. It's at Crime Weekly Pod on both. Our website is crimeweeklypodcast.com.
Oh, that's a new one thrown in the website.
I'm trying to get us back on track here, trying to get us somewhere.
You don't need to.
And I'll remind you guys again, CrimeCon, if you haven't already purchased your tickets, go on there, use the code CrimeWeekly. I believe it's all one word, and you save 10%. It's going to be in Orlando. It's going to be at the end of September. And if you want to look that up, you can go on CrimeCon's Instagram or whatever. But we're going to be there. I've already had a bunch of you guys reach out and say like, hey, we already purchased our tickets.
Of course, because we didn't get our code until, just recently.
Well, if you remember, we had the code, but we didn't have the code. It was the same code as last year. We didn't know that. But either way, we're going to probably do some type of meetup. I don't know if it'll be as official as like we did the last couple of times, because that's a lot logistically to do. But we're going to do a meetup. And you can always come over.
Do like a free-for-all party? Like,
we're going to meet up at like a bar or something like that nearby, or at the hotel, like we did in London afterwards, And then also, we're at the booth all day long. We're going to be around there. We're going to do something with the merchandise stand as well. We're going to be selling criminal coffee there. So we're going to be around all week. So all you got to do is get your tickets to CrimeCon. If you're there at the event, you're gonna see us. So, and we'll probably hang out at night one night where we'll just put it out on social, like, hey, if you're at CrimeCon, meet us over at this restaurant or this bar, and we'll all hang out. So don't be like super concerned if you already purchased your tickets. We're not gonna be like, oh no, you can't hang out with us. Maybe Stephanie would. I wouldn't.
I would never actually. You would.
I'm just throwing it out there. All right, we're going to wrap it up. Guys, we appreciate you joining us here on Crime Weekly News. We'll be back with a new episode on Friday on audio for Lori Vallow Part 4. And if you're just strictly YouTube, which this is, we'll be out on Sunday for that. So everyone stay safe out there. We will see you later this week.
Bye.